Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Jennifer Taylor, and today I'm going to show you how to analyze ratio data using SPSS. But before we jump into SPSS, I would like to review a couple things. First, we're talking about scales of measurement when we talk about ratio data. And I just want to remind you that ratio data is the most robust type of data that you can have. It's the most robust scale. And we can report the most statistics with it. And it can also be transformed into interval, ordinal, or nominal data by using the transformation functions in SPSS. But for today, what we're talking about is that raw ratio data. How do you analyze it, and what are you supposed to report on these measures? So, what is ratio data? And ratio data are measurement items that are numeric, continuous, and hierarchical. They also have these equidistant measurement items, and they can be meaningfully added, subtracted, multiplied, and divided. They also have an absolute point zero. And this is really important because this absence of the attribute that you're measuring it's meaningful with ratio data. And it's what distinguishes it from interval data. So if you don't have a 0 point, then it is considered interval data and not ratio data. Some examples of ratio data are year of birth. And technically, year of birth doesn't have a 0, but you can transform it into age, and age, you can be 0 years old. Number of children in a family, you can have 0 children in your family. And then any open-ended questions that ask how often, how much, how frequent. So when you have questions like that, when you have this ratio data, how do you report these statistics? Well, the first set of statistics that you report are central tendency measures. And central tendency measures are the summary measures that use one value to describe the middle or the center of an entire data set. And so we have mode, which is a measure of the most frequently occurring answer. So you have a survey question, how often do you visit our store? And a mode is what number was given the most. You can actually have multiple modes. The second central tendency measure is median. And this is where you take all of the answers that you've gotten and then you put them in a hierarchical order, and you select the number that is exactly in the middle, and that is your median. So 50% are lower, 50% are higher than that median number. The third central tendency measure is a mean, and there's actually different types of means that you can calculate. You can calculate arithmetic mean, which is just the averages of all the respondents' answers. And when you have questions that deal with growth rates, you can use geometric means. You can also use harmonic means. Typically, what we focus on is arithmetic means, and that is what we're going to be focusing on for our class and for this video discussion. So the second type of analyses that we do are dispersion measures. So we want these summary statistics that explain how much this data varies around that mean. So is it tight around the mean, or is it dispersed far away from the mean? So the first measure of dispersion is standard deviation, and this is the spread of measurement from the mean. And essentially what this is the average distance of each measurement score from the mean. So you take them, uses the variance, the average variance, and it's a square root of the average variance, and that's how you get the standard deviation. So we also want to include range, which is the difference between the highest and lowest reported values. The minimum value, what was the lowest reported value? Because again, we're dealing with ratio data. It's an open-ended question. What was the lowest answer and the highest answer? And then we have this maximum value. What is the highest value reported? And so those are our dispersion measures that we want to report on. So I really want to stress the importance of standard deviation because you should always include standard deviation in parentheses after the mean when you're reporting it. And it typically looks like mean equals 2.1, and then in parentheses you have SD equals 0.08 or whatever your standard deviation number is. And this number is important because it tells us how reliable the mean is for reporting on the data. And what we do is we can take the mean and we can add and subtract one standard deviation, which is you take one and you multiply it by the standard deviation number. And when you add and subtract it from the mean, that is going to give you the range of respondent answers that covers 66% of all respondents. If you do two standard deviations, which is you take 2 times the standard deviation and you add and subtract it from the mean, you're going to have the range of numbers that include 95% of respondents' answers. And if you do 3 times the mean, you are 3 times the standard deviation and add and subtract it from the mean, you're going to get 99% of respondent answers. And so if these values are normally distributed, then low standard deviations tend to suggest that values cluster around this mean, and high standard deviations indicate that values are further away from the mean. So some examples. If you had a question, how often do you visit Angelina's Boutique in the past 3 months, which is a ratio question if it's open-ended, you can have a low standard deviation situation where you have like a mean that's 3.4 and a standard deviation of 0.5. And one standard deviation is going to show you that 66% of the respondents have visited between 2.9 and 3.9 times in the past 3 months. 95% of the respondents will have visited between 2.4 and 4.4 times, and 99% of the respondents would have visited between 1.9 and 4.9 times. You compare that to a high standard deviation setting, keep the mean the same, but the standard deviation is 1.1, which is higher than the low standard deviation situation. And you're going to find that there's a larger spread. So 66% of the respondents are going to be between 2.3 and 4.5 times that they visited. 95% of the respondents are going to be between 1.2 and 5.6 times, and 99% is going to be between 0.1 and 6.7 times in the past month. So you can see that the lower the standard deviation, the closer all the values are to the means. And when you have higher standard deviations, they tend to spread apart. So just to summarize, when you have ratio data analysis, when you're doing a ratio data analysis, these are the things that you want to report. So this is your basic checklist: your mode, your median, your mean, your standard deviation, your range, your minimum value, and your maximum value. So how do you do this in SPSS? Well, I've included some data that I've made up, totally fabricated, for a fabricated store called Pets and More. And I've provided this if you're from one of my classes, you can find it in Blackboard or Canvas in the tutorial content folder. Or if you are on YouTube, you should be able to find a link to this data set in the description box below. So it should look like this when you pull it up. And it should look like this. So typically I don't name my variables the way I have it shown here, which is ORD1, RIT1, NOM1. But for this case, because I'm teaching this in a class, I wanted to identify the ordinal, ratio, nominal variables to make it a little easier for you as you follow along. So ORD means ordinal variables, RAT means ratio, NOM means nominal, INV means interval. And so in this data set, we have 2 ratio variables. I'll open it up, which is on average, how much time do you spend each time you visit Pets and More? And then what is your year of birth? So I will show you how to analyze this ratio data in its current form. The first thing you're going to do is hit Analyze. You're going to go to Descriptive Statistics. Then you're going to click on Frequencies. So again, Analyze. Here, I'll click out of here. Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, Frequencies. Click on Frequencies. Okay. And I like to look at my variables instead of the question names. I find it easier. So I am going to click on, display variable names. Okay, I don't know why. There we go. And it sorted it for me. And I want these two ratio variables. You can, I just clicked on Shift, and then I highlighted both of them, and then I can put them over here. Or you can click on them one at a time. Either way is fine. Make sure you click that arrow. Again, I'll show you that. Just in case I went too fast, you can do them one at a time. Or you can click on the first one, hit Shift, and click on the second. Oops. I'm sorry, click Control. Control, click on that. And now for the analysis, you're going to go to Statistics. We need the mean, the median, the mode. We need our measures of dispersion, standard deviation, range, the minimum, and the maximum. And we're going to hit Continue. And then we simply hit OK. And what you're going to see here is we have each of our variables, and we have the mean, the median, the mode, the standard deviation, the range, the minimum, and the maximum. And now you can tell a story about those ratio variables. So if you were going to write this up, you would explain what your sample size is, explain if you had any missing data, you would provide the mean, you would also give the standard deviation in parentheses after the mean, and you could talk about the mode and the median, and then you would provide the range. And that would be your write-up for your ratio variables for this class. So that's it on how to analyze ratio data in SPSS. And if you have any questions, please let me know either in class or in the comments below. But it's been great being with you today, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.